Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Deal with D and J. I'm co-host Chick Pro. Alongside me is the delightful DJ McCatherine tonight. DJ, how are we feeling?
Doing okay. I am starting to fall through the ice that is slowly but surely melting um around here. So that's fun. About as fun as it was on day two falling through the ice. So all types of fun. What about you? How was it in good old warm or warmer Texas?
It was solid of ice. Literally, like it snowed, and then like layers of ice just were on top of it. Like it was a skating rink, basically. Like if I had skates, I could skate on it. Like my stairwell was a death trap because the ice wasn't flat on the stairwell; it was rounded. So like if you took one wrong step, you're done. People didn't plow the roads, they didn't salt anything. It was just like they were like, we're just not going to do anything for 3 days here in Texas. It's like,
Nice.
okay, but like I had a job to do. Like we played a game Tuesday night. Like I had to get places, you know? So that was a bit surprising. Then I was in Tampa this past weekend for Gatsby with the GDP boys, Mikey, Hunter, and Evan. Kara came down and we had a good old time. But dude, it was so effing cold. It wasn't cold in terms of temperature. I mean, the temperature was cold, but it was raining and like it was wet. And then you're on the water and then the wind is whipping in. Like it was all different types of bad. All different types of bad. It was disgusting out there. And yeah, that's Gasparilla in a nutshell, basically.
I mean, say what anybody can say whatever they want to me. Florida cold is a different type of cold. It is a miserable cold compared to anywhere else that I've ever been.
It's just you add in the coastal wind, and it just sucks.
And
And
the
I'm
humidity.
not gonna sit here and say like Massachusetts was any different because if you got cold wind in Massachusetts, it's like very very bad. But I mean, it's still just so cold. It wasn't fun to be around. And then, like, you don't dress for the weather properly because when I woke up in the morning, it was pretty warm, and then it just slowly felt the temperature drop. But, well, DJ, let's dive into it here. We have the Super Bowl on Sunday. The Seattle Seahawks versus the New England Patriots, right?
Yes,
Let's
sir.
break this game down before we start to give our picks here. Let's talk about Seattle, New England, paths to victory, and then our winners here. Seattle, undoubtedly the best team in the NFC all season, right? It was the Rams, and then they took down the Rams twice. They have been incredible all year defensively. Some may say they're better than Legion of Boom. Nick Emenwari has been a superstar. They've had an incredible defensive line, and the secondary for Seattle just doesn't let a lot of things get past them. And minus a couple players, they really don't make any mistakes in that front. On the offensive side, Sam Darnold is trying to complete what is a storybook kind of reversal of a career, right? And granted, he probably still has another laundry list of years left for him, but the things that happened in his career have been nothing short of spectacular with this turnaround. It was very Baker Mayfield-esque as well.
Yeah.
Same
Very.
paths, literally. So same paths. Sam Darnold trying to make everybody eat their words. I mean, he already got a GM fired, unfortunately. We'll talk about that later in the show. But the offense for Seattle is another story in itself. JSN, Jackson Smith and Njigba, has been nothing short of spectacular all season. Coupled up with a great secondary receiver in Cooper Kupp with a deep threat in Rashid Shaheed. And then you mix in the likes of Jake Bobo, Barner, right? You could dump it off in the backfield to Walker. And, you know, they have a couple other backs with Charbonnet out. And the offensive line keeps Darnold pretty much upright for most of the game. You look on the side for New England. Right, I'm setting the stage here, DJ. You look on the side for New England. You have second-year quarterback Drake May. You have the veteran head coach Mike Vrabel in his first Super Bowl. This team has overperformed and has constantly excelled expectations. In a game against the Broncos, we all thought the Broncos defense would lead them to victory, and they did enough to win. They did enough to win in every game. The offense has been nothing short of great. The defense, every time when you think the defense isn't that good, they are sneakily underrated every single time. You doubt them, they rise even higher to the occasion. You bring in the likes of Stephon Diggs in his first Super Bowl, Kayshon Boutte, Hunter Henry. You have Travion Henderson in the backfield with Ramondre Stevenson, with Drake May leading them down the path. What does it mean for both teams? It means for vaulted franchises, giving us a little reminiscent story of the early 2010s, right? We remember the likes of Brady and Wilson going back-to-back games. We obviously know about Darius Butler, who's now going to live in infamy given what his career ended up being. But will always be remembered for the pick when he should have handed off to Marshawn. In this game, running it right back. New England in white, Seattle in blue, Super Bowl 60. DJ, let's break it down.
The matchup is very intriguing. Obviously, the New England Patriots are coming into this matchup, and, they have had a lot of doubters. They have played a lot of close games in these playoffs. They're close-ish, underwhelming games in these playoffs, right? Chargers, they didn't look great. 16-3. That's dominant in most case scenarios, a 13-point win. They just didn't look great. Against Houston, they put 28 points up against Houston. Now, that's an impressive feat, very impressive feat. CJ Stroud basically threw that game away. But nonetheless, defense stood up in times. Defense was able to move the ball at times. And then in Denver, in shitty conditions, they prevailed. Once again, in a 10-7, just slugfest in crappy weather. And then on the other side, you have Seattle, who's been on quite the roll, right? They've averaged, 36 points in their last 2 games? Their offense is rolling. And they've only given up, let's see if I can do quick math in my head here, about 15 and a half points per game. 16 points per game.
Give or
something
take,
like that.
Yeah.
If you're asking me straight up, it seems like a pretty one-sided affair. One team seems like they're leaps and bounds in some scenarios better than the other. But then when you look in between the lines, this is a very good matchup. It is going to come down to the execution. Can those people in the past or who have had rough pasts not refer back to it? Like Sam Darnold, like you mentioned, is having a rewritten career right now. The last 2 years, he has rewritten his career, leading 2 teams to NFC Championship games, AFC.
Led both teams to 14-plus win seasons.
There you go. That's good enough.
They lost to a buzzsaw of a Rams team last season.
In what round? Was it round 1? Okay.
Wild card.
I didn't know that. I thought they won their division. I thought they did win their division.
Nope. It came down to the last game of the season where Sam Darnold of old popped right back out.
Oh, well, that at least leads right into my point, though, is you need the Sam Darnold of old to not show up. He needs to finally burn that bridge and understand that he can play at this level all the time and win in clutch games. And he's been doing it all postseason long. So
I think Sam Darnold is going to be, I don't want to say a difference maker, but it really is
the reason.
It really is every game of I think if you're a Seattle fan, because I was like this as a Minnesota fan last season with Darnold, is when do you get the old Darnold, right? Obviously, you got to give credit to how tough a division the NFC North was. I think being in moments like that really helped him prepare for what this season entailed. And also, I think the offense for Minnesota, there wasn't a run game. There was a lot of issues that the Seattle team simply doesn't have in terms of all that. I'm going to say a lot. I got to cut that. But with Sam Darnold, all he has to do is just not make a mistake, or at least a costly one. No fumble in a key moment, right? No interception when you don't need to. No forcing throws if you don't have to, right? I think that's what's made him so good. In the game against the Rams, you know what he had? 0 interceptions, 0 fumbles, took sacks, right? Lived to see another day. I think that's been something that he has been underrated at in this playoffs and in big moments of the season where I think he knows he doesn't have to go be Superman. I think he knows that he can rely on his defense, and as long as he plays probably B-plus football, they're going to find ways to win this game. Get the ball in the hands of your playmakers and let them go to work. The run game for Seattle has been consistent. Hasn't always been the greatest if you look at a yardage front, but they have been consistent. They ran it all over San Francisco. They shut down the San Francisco offense, right? They shut down the Rams offense. That was a juggernaut of an offense with Adams, Nakua, Stafford, Williams, you name it, right? And I just think as long as Seattle does what they have to, lean into the especially because the defense is going to get theirs. I hate to say it, Drake May has not played his best football the last 6 weeks of the NFL season.
Yeah.
right? But Drake May has done what Sam Darnold has kind of done, which is find ways to win and not put your team in a bad spot. I don't think he's put them in great spots, but as long as Seattle can get to Drake May and make him make uncharacteristic mistakes with Darnold playing the way that he has been playing, it's hard pressed to not see that being the path for Seattle's victory on Sunday.
Yeah, I think even if Drake May is having an off day, it's going to be how much that Seattle can control New England's run game. I mean, of the active teams, New England or of the teams in the playoffs, of what Seattle needs to do if Drake May is having a bad day, even more than anything, is control the run game. Right? Make him throw the ball. Make Drake May throw the ball. Of the teams in the playoffs, New England is fourth in rushing yards per game. They average 130 yards on the ground, and they have a pretty good duo with Henderson, who's going to be fresh if they need him, and Ramon Stevenson, right? They have been, or the run game has carried New England through these playoffs, really, because like you said, Drake May has struggled. Seattle has also been the team to force the most turnovers in this playoffs. They've got 4. So if they can force Drake May to make the mistakes that he can make, Seattle can cakewalk through this. But like you said, sneakily, the New England defense has been amazing, especially in these playoffs. They only average 210 yards per game. That leads the postseason. 12 sacks this postseason leads. And they have 3 turnovers, which is tied for second. So like you said, I think it'll come down to Sam Darnold's ability to not make mistakes. The whole game is going to come down to Sam Darnold, and if he makes the mistakes, in my opinion.
I think another thing that I think this Super Bowl really highlights is, football is a game of inches, and it's very much like a tug of war where you just have to hold out until you are ready to fully yank the rope back, right? Yeah. You don't want to get yanked out. You don't want to get knocked out of the tug of war too quickly, but you also don't want to wait till it's too late.
Right.
Whoa. I think Christian Gonzalez against Jackson Smith and Njigba is a fascinating matchup. I had a burp. I think Christian Gonzalez on Jackson Smith and Njigba is a fascinating matchup. Christian Gonzalez is an underrated corner. He has been nothing short. I don't know if he's on the level of a Patrick Surtain per se, but he is close. He's a top 5 corner in this league, right? He's better than Sauce. He's better than a lot of these guys. Maybe you put Derek Stingley in front of him because I really like Derek Stingley's game, right? Christian Gonzalez has been nothing short of one of the best corners in football. He's going to go up against one of the best wide receivers in football in JSN. How much of that is going to be one-on-one coverage? How much of that is going to be zone? How much of that is he's going to be it's zone coverage, but Gonzalez is following JSN the entire game, right? How much is that going to be part of the game plan for the Patriots? How much of that is Seattle anticipating happening? It's going to be an interesting chess match, really, because if you are able to take away JSN, is it a Cooper Kupp game? Does Cooper Kupp go off and then it's, you're letting the slot receiver out of nowhere is just eating up your linebackers and you're trying to survive, and now you have to take Gonzalez out of what the initial game plan is. Now JSN's going to beat you over the top. That's something I'm really fascinated by on that side of kind of the front of what's going to go on there. I'm also incredibly fascinated by the Patriots defensive line against the Seattle offensive line, because the Patriots defensive line has been able to get key, timely sacks and stops for the Patriots, whereas Seattle has done enough in key moments to sustain drives, to extend them, as well as ensure the run game gets going as well. Really fascinating things to keep eye on. Let's talk about.
Go ahead. Hold on, I got one more talking point. Do you think that we're going to see a different New England team now that they're going to be in conditions that are favorable for both sides of football, right? Like Drake May, I mean, granted, he hasn't had a good last few games, but is there an advantage or a difference, you think, in playing in a California weather where the weather is going to be favorable for him to do really whatever he wants, right? And you're obviously going to have focal points in this game where they want to attack the pass game or they want to attack the run game, right? But in the conditions that the Patriots have been playing in have not been favorable for passing the ball. right? It's been cold. It's been wet, dreary, right? And now you're going to go play in California where it'll probably be a little cool, but you're definitely going to be able to open up the playbook a lot more in the conditions that you're playing in.
I think the weather is a positive effect rather than a negative, I think. I definitely like the fact that New England's probably going to be able to throw it a lot more, which leans into Drake May's strong suit, which is throwing it. Well, some quarterbacks are better running the football. They would rather run. Like, Drake May's a pocket passer with the ability to run. Rather, like, on the other side, Lamar Jackson's a runner with a great passing ability. I really think this allows them to open up the playbook. I think defensively, it allows them to get a little bit more creative schematically. I don't think you have to worry about, okay, we just got to keep them in front of us in terms of, like, the viewpoint because you can't see 3 yards because of the snow, right? And same in kind of like New England. You had that dreary, cold weather. Every hit hurts, and you're just trying to, like, survive the next drive. I think it brings a little bit of juice. But I don't think things change that much in terms of, like, maybe, like, they can just pass it a lot more. To me, I think for New England, go ahead.
I was going to say, that's exactly what it is. It's the ability to throw more is something that, one, Seattle hasn't been able to study, right, for the last 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
And 2, that New England hasn't been able to do because the conditions just aren't favorable for it. Drake May tried to throw the football, and when he did, it didn't look good for the most part.
Yeah. I also want to talk a little bit about New England's path to victory here. Obviously, I think it's Drake May using his legs. I think the run game for New England has to be effective. If they take away the run game and they know they can just sit back in coverage when they can get 4 to 5 guys to you, it's like an anaconda. The grip is in, you just got to submit. I think that's a big factor for them on the offensive side of the ball. Drake May cannot have bad turnovers, right? The Houston game, for example, you cannot have 4 turnovers in that game. You cannot have 4 turnovers in this game. You have to keep it clean. You can have maybe 1, but you can't have more than 1. If you have 2 to 3, you're playing into Seattle's strengths, right? Because, that's really where it stemmed from when they played the Rams. The Rams, like, the game was back and forth, and then the guy muffed the punt, and then Seattle capitalized, and the game, like, the cushion was not enough for the Rams to get over. Like, right. You cannot have this game get away from you. I don't want to compare it to, like, college football, but Seattle is very much like Indiana in the sense of, like, if you give them a 10-point lead, they are 9 times out of 10 are not going to give that back up. So I think Drake May has to take care of the ball. I think the run game has to be effective. And defensively, it's can you get Darnold off time? Can you get Darnold uncomfortable? I'm not quite sure they can do that, honestly. I think they're going to get theirs. I think they're going to get their sacks because Seattle's offensive line is not, like, the greatest thing in the world either. But I'm not sure that they will be effective enough in moments to make sure that they can get to where they need to go on the defensive side. Gonzalez versus JSN is something that I've highlighted. If that's something they're going to do, I think this really helps them out defensively to take away. Like, if they know they don't have to worry about JSN, then that helps you out tremendously. But New England doesn't have great offensive receivers on the other side of the ball. Diggs is good, but he's not as good as JSN, obviously. He was at one point, but not anymore. My concern for New England is entirely the offensive line. I am very worried about Will Campbell at left tackle. I am very worried about that offensive line. I think Will Campbell has done a great job the entirety of the season. But what I saw against Denver wasn't pretty. What I saw against Houston wasn't great, right? I'm not sure that they're going to be able to survive this defensive front of Seattle with the schemes that they do and the things that they pull up, rushing 4, rushing 6, rushing 5. I'm very, very, very worried about the New England offensive line because if Seattle can get theirs rushing 4, like I've mentioned, then you just are not going to be able to score against that secondary unless they make boneheaded mistakes. Yeah, I don't. Too many. To me, I want to dive into, like, kind of the picks here now. Too many things have to go in New England's favor for them to even, like, have a puncher's chance. Seattle's in the driver's seat.
Yep.
They
I
know,
agree.
they know if they just play their game, they're going to win. I think New England knows that they have to be better than what they've been in the last 2 weeks, the last two games, and they have to not shoot themselves in the foot because Seattle doesn't do it with the way Darnold is currently playing. And you are going to bank on the fact that he's going to just switch. I think that's a hard thing to bank on. I think Vrabel's telling his guys, like, if you can get him out of his comfort zone, you're going to be fine. But even then, he's faced a tough Niners defense. He's faced a tough Rams defense, and he hasn't been shaken up.
Right.
I'm really interested in this, but I think it's too much for New England to overcome. Just so many things for them unless they completely shut down JSN. Even then, JSN was completely shut down in that Rams game for the most part. And Seattle still was moving the ball at will.
I don't know how anybody thinks that if you take away JSN that Cooper Kupp is somebody to brush off. Like Cooper Kupp is an absolute maniac. Like maybe he's not like 3 or 4 years ago Cooper Kupp, but
no, bro had stuff left in the tank. People thought he was out, but he still had stuff left in the tank.
He's got plenty of juice. Plenty of juice. So keep going. I'm sorry.
Again, I think it's too much for New England to overcome, unfortunately. I think Seattle's in the driver's seat. New England is way ahead of schedule. Patriots fans are going to talk about how Darnold ain't this, and Seattle's played nobody. I talked to one kid today, not kid, but talked to one of my buddies, and he was like, they haven't played anybody. They played up a wash Niners team, and they played the Rams with old Stafford. Like, they just talked themselves into delusion, like just insane stuff. They've won a bunch. Like they've played really. They're like, look who they played. They played great teams and they've won. They've won close games and they've battled. And I just think I'm picking Seattle. I think Seattle's gonna win. If I have to pick a Super Bowl MVP, I'm probably gonna take. I think it's gonna be Darnold if there's a Super Bowl MVP for Seattle. I think it'll be Sam Darnold.
Yeah. Was this the same person who was saying that Indiana didn't play anybody either?
No, different person.
You got talked to a lot of radical New England fans, I guess.
New England
people who
fans
are in love with Boston and are anti-Indiana.
They just, granted, you should 100% think your team's gonna win, but I think they know
the logic behind it is not sound.
Correct. It's the irrational Boston fans that are just like, we deserve to be here. It's the Patriot way to be back in the Super Bowl, blah, 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 blah. You're way ahead of schedule. But the same way you can say Seattle hasn't played anyone, you can say you guys haven't played anyone either. You played a banged-up Justin Herbert. You played C.J. Stroud, and I just have to say that, and you just know.
Don't be on C.J. like that, man.
I'm going to be on C.J. like that. And then they played Jared Stidham in the snow.
And still kept it close.
And it was close. If it wasn't for Drake May running to get a first down.
Yeah, right.
And
what?
And Denver just not taking the points as well.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, your talking points are all on par, at least from my point of views here. Again, the most interesting part of this to me is New England gets to operate in a section of their playbook, at least from a home standpoint, for the first time. Let's see who have been the Patriots' last few matchups here, like even going into before the postseason. So they played in New York. They played at home versus Miami, at home versus the Chargers, at home versus Houston, and on the road in Denver. So in the last 5 games, they have not played in a single good conditioned game. In some of those games, they played some worse opponents, i.e. the Jets and the Dolphins. But even then, they probably didn't have to do much more out of the basics in order to win those games, especially towards the end of the season, right? At that point, the Jets and the Dolphins are probably trying to get as much draft stock as they can. With that being said, you still have 5 weeks worth of passing that you have probably given up to support this playoff push, to support the positive side of moving the ball down the field, which has been, again, running the ball for New England. I really think New England is going to open up this pass game, and they are going to have a plan that really challenges this Seattle defense. On the contrary, though, the Seattle defense has been stellar in turnovers this year. or excuse me, this postseason, well, this year and this postseason, the Seattle offense pushes the ball down the field so efficiently, so effectively, and you take away one, another one takes its place. Next man up mentality, right? Like you, I don't think that they have enough to, excuse me, I don't think that New England has enough to overcome what Seattle brings to the table. Now, there are a couple scenarios where I think they can really sneak a victory in here. And this is my kind of path to victory for New England because I figured this is going to be a close game. This is going to come down to the final drive. Dear Seattle, giving New England the ball back in a one possession game with 6 or less minutes left on the clock. You better start using timeouts early because they're going to hammer the ball down your throat and they're going to milk the clock and then they're going to attempt to use whatever concoction of a play that they come up with as little time left on the clock to try to take a victory away, right? But if I'm New England, you need to make sure that there's not more than 40 seconds left on the clock when you give them the ball back, right? With how effective they move the ball down the field. So it's an intriguing matchup. I really think that the defenses are going to play less of a matchup or less of a impact in this game. Like I'm expecting low 30s, upper 20s in this matchup as far as scoring goes. I am going to lean Seattle. I'm going to go Seattle 28 is kind of how I'm digging it. It feels like it's just too close. It's far enough away where a touchdown is going to need to be had in order to win the game, and a field goal is just not going to do it. So give me Seattle. I think for your MVP, I'm going to go JSN. I think he's been the rock star of this team all season long. I think when push comes to shove, he's going to need to step up, and I think he's going to get it done. Sam Darnold is obviously going to play a big part in that. So if they overlook his ability to get JSN the ball, but I really think it's going to be JSN making people miss, being in his explosive element and getting open. So, yeah, give me the Seahawks.
And with that, a great NFL season comes to an end there. We'll talk about stuff in probably 2 weeks about football. But
yeah, right.
But the draft now,
week break,
because now we got the draft. Now we got to get studying again.
Oh, goody.
No, let's dive into a little ball here. Let's talk a little NBA here.
Mm-hmm.
NBA trade deadline will, by the time this episode comes out, it's a Friday, so a lot of other trades are going to break between when we record and then obviously when we post on Friday. With those, we will obviously post to TikTok. But with that being said for now, here's what we know. We're going to start with probably the most surprising trade of the trade deadline, which is James Harden wanting out of the Clippers, surprisingly, as he's playing some of his best basketball that he's played in his career since like 2018, 2019. Wants out of LA, and now he's going to Cleveland. The Clippers get Darius Garland and a second-round pick. Now, Darius Garland is 26. James Harden, I can tell you right now, is not 26. James Harden is actually 36. When you look at this trade on paper, you're like, this is a terrible trade for Cleveland. Garland this season has been averaging 18 points a game with 7 assists, shooting 45 from the field and 36 from 3. In his last game alone, he had 20. In his last 5 games, he's had 20, 23, 22, 16, and 29. It's hard. I don't know if it's the antsy, but like, the antsiness of Cleveland to feel like they're in this win-now mode. Obviously, James Harden this season is averaging 25 points per game, 8 assists, 35 from 3, 41 from the field. In his last 5 games, he's had 25, 16, 19, 18, 24. I think when you look at it on paper, I think it makes sense for Cleveland because they are looking to increase, I just think, their ability to score. Because if you really think about it, because I can say this from watching them firsthand, when I was in D.C., was that if it's not Mitchell dropping 45 to try and get them in front, they don't really have a true secondary scorer. But the problem is when you bring in a guy like James Harden. Darius Garland, it kind of is. I
was thinking even Evan Mobley.
Evan Mobley, yeah. But I think if you're looking at it and you're thinking, well, James Harden's going to get us over the top, I don't think that's the case. I think if you're the Clippers, I think this is a huge get. right? For
Oh yeah.
Garland, you get a young guard, right? I don't know how much years of control they're going to get. I need to probably do a little bit more research on that. But like he's 26 with the ability to re-sign him or he's under contract, right? Looked it up for me. And you get to pair him up with Kawhi in the way that they play. I don't know if they've ever had a true point guard over in the LA Clipper system. To be honest, I ain't really watching Clipper ball like that. That's not my shtick. I'm not staying up to be watching that. But I mean, you get to add him with Bradley Beal, who's a true two guard, right? You obviously have Bogdanovich. We're looking at a bunch of other guys here. Chris Dunn. You have Kawhi, Lopez, Zubac. Now Ty Washington. Just naming dudes now. But like you get to add Garland in here, and you get to instantly just slot him into the lineup, right? He's going to be so much better than what I think people are going to give him credit for. This team needed an extra piece, and now they finally got it with this. Like Garland's under a ton of years because his contract is $39 million. So,
well, they'll get the rest of this year with Garland and one more solid year before they have to decide whether or not they're going to trade him or extend him. He's probably going to come with a pretty high price tag, which is kind of what the Clippers have been known for, is signing these major contracts. Like you were mentioning, I mean, with the players that they have around them, especially in the starting lineup, you mentioned Kawhi and Bradley Beal. That's a pretty solid pickup, right, for a true point guard. And for Cleveland, maybe they see this level of James Harden's play, like right now, as more consistent than Darius Garland is able to offer, right? I think that's been Cleveland's biggest issue is when Garland is playing his A game, he can be a top 7 guard in the NBA, right? Top 7, top 5. But it's not consistent enough to keep him up there. He doesn't shoot the ball as consistently. In big moments, he hasn't really shown up. Donovan Mitchell, obviously you don't trade away Donovan Mitchell if you're Cleveland. You're also looking at a pure shooter who can create his own space with the ball in his hands, which Cleveland, like Donovan Mitchell, yes, he can do that, but James Harden, that's like a signature for him. So it's not my favorite. It's really not, especially as a Cavs fan, but I can understand it. And you probably are not going to have to sign James Harden back after next year, right? So they'll get the rest of this year and next year with him, if I'm not mistaken, right?
yeah. Yep.
So, and then you get to kind of move on. You probably get a smaller price tag. What's James Harden worth right now? What's he getting per year? If you didn't already look that up.
I moved on from it, but it's still cheaper than Garland.
Exactly. So you're going from what, 39 million? Well, you're not actually.
Well, I still think Harden. They both cost the same.
Right.
Right. So I think from both. Like, I now that I'm doing a little bit of reading here, because this trade broke before we jumped on here, so apologies for sounding a little misinformed here. But I think I will say this, from a schematic standpoint, Garland fits into the Clipper system better. But for the Clippers, they get an extra year control with an injury-prone Garland at a price point, and now, like, granted, I think the Clippers, they weren't doing too hot, right? And then they ripped off 15 straight wins or whatever, 15-3 at a stretch of point in time, and they find themselves in a play-in spot. And Cleveland, I think, understands how big of a beast the East is. Yeah. You gotta have and again, it goes back to the point of just because Donovan Mitchell plays at a star level. You see how I didn't say superstar? He plays Garland? At a star. No, Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell plays criminal. He plays at a star level, and now you get to, and I think if you're
Cleveland, even believe that. You don't even believe that. That was rage bait. You don't even believe that freaking statement after watching him. You are a criminal.
You get to add in Harden now, who can take pressure off of Mitchell in the playoffs in key moments. Defensive, but the one thing I do find surprising is that both these guys like to have the ball in their hands a whole lot. Like, there's only so many possessions. And both guys like to take the ball up the court. So what I think Kenny Atkinson, the coach, can draw some things up / maybe give their guys a little bit more rest going to the playoffs. But offensively for Cleveland, this doesn't make as much sense because I just like Harden's going to need the ball so much. And so does Mitchell. And it's like, who's going to be like, are you going to try and do the Boston and Celtics, the 1A, 1B? Try and go Brown and Tatum? But Brown and Tatum have two completely different styles of game versus Harden and Mitchell are a little bit similar. Harden's much more iso ball, but Mitchell likes to get a little bit downhill. Unlike, Tatum and Brown, where we all know Brown's a slasher, and Tatum, his first move is to try and go mid-range or three-point. So I find that a little interesting to see how that works. I think overall, it's a win-win for both sides, but I think for Cleveland, the only way it's a win-win is if they can get to the Eastern Conference Final.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's a crazy expectation. Funny enough, I saw a tweet today that said that there is a way that Cleveland gets Harden, Giannis, and LeBron back for next season. And I was like, Harden to Cleveland sounds crazy, right? And then today, just in the last hour, Harden got traded. Now, I'm not saying where I saw it. It was from some Yahoo Sports, some how it could happen post. But it would be kind of insane to see if that that possibility actually came through and that crazy big three made its way to Cleveland. It makes life a little interesting next year. In LeBron's farewell tour.
But if you add Giannis, that's just too many mouths to feed. The big three era is over. You got to have a dynamic duo with compliments.
I mean, if they were able to keep Mitchell in that, they trade Giannis and a bunch of assets. They just got Harden. And they signed LeBron James in free agency next year?
I don't know, man. We'll talk about Giannis here in a second. Let's talk a little bit here. Chicago and the Celtics did a little trade. They swapped seconds. Chicago gets Anthony Simmons. Can't pronounce it. Yeah. Boston gets a much-needed center in Nikola Vucevic. With an anticipation that Jason Tatum is returning. It's kind of like Simmons served his purpose, get him out, bring in a center, make a play for the push, make it push for the playoffs. I don't hate this move. I think it's a good move for both sides. It just adds a piece for Chicago to rebuild, and Boston gets a much-needed center. One trade that I found really surprising was Detroit and Chicago, and the Timberwolves got in here for some reason. The Bulls got Mike Conley and Jaden Ivey.
Yeah.
Love that move in terms of getting Jaden Ivey. I think that's a really good core piece that the Bulls can build around and actually add some substance to this team. Detroit gets Kevin Huerter and Dario Saric with a 26 first from the Timberwolves. And Huerter, man, I think is a little bit underrated in the way he plays some days, right? He's going to be not the main focal point, right? But he's going to give you exactly what you need. I mean, right now he's averaging 11 points, 3 rebounds, but he shoots the ball at a 45% clip and career-wise shoots it at a 38% clip from 3. I think that's what Detroit needs because Detroit's they love to crash the boards. They love to get twos. They don't play the 3 game as much. Now they're adding a guy who can kind of give them that little bit of depth without having to break the bank. Dario Saric, I think it's just an extra depth piece for them. I don't think it's anything crazy in terms of what they're adding in from him, but I think it's just an extra piece for them for what is a really, really good Detroit team. And you got a first round pick out of it. I think the cost of Jaden Ivey was a lot. I think it was he's only 23. Right. This is a really good player for the Bulls to build around. And I also think a guy like Ivy needs a place where he can maybe, I don't want to say become the number 1 guy, but he needs a place where he can consider being the 2. So, and they got some good pieces on the team right now. I'm looking at it. They got Ayo, Conley, Kobe. They added Simmons for the Bulls, right? It's a team, a lot of young guys that they kind of have to figure out what they're going to do with. They have Essengay, who's not bad. They have obviously Josh Giddey, surprisingly second highest paid player on the team now that Simmons is on the team. But you have Okoro, you're building in small pieces to where you want to go. And I think that's always a smart thing to do if you're the Bulls. And for Detroit, you add a big depth piece in Huerter that I really like, and Dario Saric, don't really care about, but you got a first. So that's also big dubs. Big Dubskies. As a
Did you kind of see? Sorry, can I throw one in here in between your talking here?
are you gonna talk
Did
about Memphis
you?
and Utah?
Yes, this
Well, I was about to
monstrous
say.
amount of people being moved.
I was gonna say. Well, one, do you know that I'm a Memphis Grizzlies fan?
Yes. Why does that not surprise me? You have like a team in every state for a different sport. Who's your field hockey team? Who's your
UMass.
field hockey? Okay, that makes sense, I guess. Who's your freaking I don't know pickleball team?
Dallas.
Yeah, got you.
Anyways, no, I'm a Memphis Grizzlies fan. They're also the closest team to St. Louis. Like, I didn't root like St. Louis doesn't have a basketball team, and I wasn't gonna pick the Bulls, so Memphis it was. And I also love Zach Randolph. That's like the type of guy. That's the guy I loved watching.
Yeah, that's a valid
love
point.
Zebo. Love Zebo getting to the rim. Love it. But I will say I was shocked to see Jaren Jackson go.
Yeah.
I was very shocked by that. I didn't think that was the route we were going to take. I know we were going to move off Ja because I don't think Ja is the guy we want to build around anymore, which is fine. But the fact that we traded Jaren Jackson, who I thought was going to be a Grizzly for life, from what I read, we're getting him at the best value that he can because he hasn't been that great since he won Defensive Player of the Year statistically. If there's one thing Memphis is really good at, it's identifying talent. These three guys, Conchar, Landale, and Vincent Williams, these guys, like Landale was coming off the bench for us. He was giving us some solid points, nothing crazy. Conchar, 3 points. And then we gave up, what's his face? Vince Williams Jr., he was getting about 8. Like, there were the other 3 guys were role players along with Jaren Jackson. What I love about this for Memphis, the 3 first-round picks are amazing. Between the Desmond Bane trade and the Jaren Jackson trade, we have a total of 7 first-round picks. We are basically taking the OKC approach low-key, minus the fact of, like, they lucked into some really big pieces, like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and some other stuff. But that's kind of the route we're taking right now. We have 7 first-round picks through 2031, I think. And we're getting really serviceable guys to stay somewhat competitive. Al Anderson is going to drive me nuts because he used to be a Memphis Grizzly before he went over to Utah this past season, and I hate this guy. He sucks. I hate him so much. But apparently his 3-point shooting is much better because that was why I hated him, was because he couldn't shoot the 3 ball and he was terrible defensively.
I feel like I remember this rant. I feel like this is deja vu.
Probably. Love getting Walker Clayton Jr. Love.
Yeah, I thought that was big.
Obviously, not exactly what he was over in Utah, what he was over when he was at Florida, but I just like the idea of what he can provide.
I mean, isn't this his rookie year?
Rookie year. Yeah, it's his rookie year. Obviously, he wasn't going to be Cooper. He wasn't going to be some of these big time rookies. But for what I think Memphis is trying to do, he's a great piece to have. You get Georges Niang, gets to stay on the boards. He's going to get minutes, right? And then Taylor Hendricks, just a bench piece. But what I love is the 3 first-rounders. I was talking to a buddy who also is a Memphis Grizzlies fan of mine, and he was like, we're just going to be in this perpetual rebuild. And I was like, I don't think we were rebuilding the last couple years. I think we had a genuine chance to get after it. Taylor Jenkins wasn't enough, so we couldn't get that done. We fired him. And I think the guy who we have now is a little bit more Euroball focused in terms of the European style of basketball. And I think he's just trying to get the team to be what he is. If there's one thing Memphis, though, is really good at, it is identifying talent and getting the best out of that talent. I mean, look at Cedric Coward. Like, what a guy. He came from, I think, Division III, started 2 years at Washington State finally, and I mean, just came into his own. And he has great skills that his skills translated to the NBA game, right? Cam Spencer and Jalen Wells have been underrated superstars for this team. Shockingly, on this roster, right, you still have Ja Morant, who I don't anticipate being on this team for very long. I don't know if it's this deadline or if it's in the summer, but you still have KCP. I love Aldama. He is really good, but now you're adding in a ton of these really solid death pieces with Niang. Obviously, Zach Edey's been injured, but Cedric Coward has been phenomenal. I love the addition of Clayton. Brandon Clark was a big get for us way back in the day when he came out of Gonzaga. They just know how to identify talent and get the best out of that talent. Obviously, it hasn't translated to this season, but I think that's because I think regime and the head coach know we have to look elsewhere. Granted, I don't know if Memphis is in this if we didn't fire Taylor Jenkins, but I digress. I wasn't a big fan of that move when we did fire him, but I think with this new coach, I think he doesn't want any part of John Morant. I think we know that it's time to move on from Ja. We know what the skill set is, and for what that new head coach is trying to do, it's not going to work. So what I love about the trade is 3 first-rounders with the hopes of Walter Clayton maybe becoming like a Mike Conley type guy.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, you laid it all out there. Check. Not much for me to add to that. I just thought it was a crazy major trade. I mean, I think the assets that Memphis received were really good. I really don't know what the Jazz are doing with this. I mean, I like the Jaren Jackson pickup, and maybe I'm just a casual ball knower. I didn't feel like they really upgraded. They got rid of a lot of depth for themselves.
I think it's a good question to ask, because if you're Utah, what is the goal? You know what I mean? Like, what is the goal that you're trying to do? Because when you look at this team here, now, what I love about ESPN, you don't have to wait. They update it right away. But, like, you're looking at, obviously, Bryce Sensabaugh is having a really good season, more than what he's had before. Obviously, Keontae Baylor guy, having an unbelievable season. He's averaging 24.2 points per game, like, just playing out of his mind this year for Utah. But, like, you have, obviously, Isaiah Collier and Kyle Filipowski. You have Walter Kessler. And now you have Jaren Jackson. Like, you got these 3 big guys on your team. Like, where are you going to find minutes for them? Not to mention, you still have Lauri Markkanen, Joseph Nurkic, and Kevin Love. I'm not sure Kevin Love's giving you a ton of minutes, but still. You just got a lot of these guys on here. You have Tanji from Wisconsin last year. But also, you still have the Ace Bailey experiment going on in Utah. And I just think if you're Utah, you kind of have to figure out what is your game. If it's going to be Keontae and Jaren Jackson with Ace Bailey subtly in the mix, I don't really know. Ace Bailey not having the greatest rookie year. I was not the biggest Ace Bailey fan when he came out of college either. I didn't get the hype. But I'm also the same guy who didn't think VJ Edgecombe was ready. But then I had to remember college ball is very different than NBA skill set. So now when I watch with that mindset, now with the VJ knowledge that I have, I can kind of identify guys way better. But I just don't. I think Memphis has a clearer path than Utah does, because that is kind of a head scratching trade to make, given Utah is third to last in the West, and Memphis is 3 games back of a play-in spot with Portland. So, Blazers and the Hawks did whatever trade, don't really care. Obviously, we know about Trae Young going to the Wizards, and the Hawks got McCollum and Kispert. Another kind of big trade that I found surprising was Cleveland getting Dennis Schroeder, Keon Ellis, and they gave up DeAndre Hunter, which I really liked Hunter's game for Cleveland. Just because he was a third scorer, great length defensively, can get you where you need to go. And the Bulls got Saric, but now they traded him to the Pistons. I'm not quite sure where that was going for Cleveland. I'm a little head scratching about some of these moves from Cleveland. Because now you bring in Schroeder. I don't get it. Where is he fitting into?
I mean, I think he's a good backup guard.
Yeah, but why are you giving up DeAndre Hunter then? You don't need to give up a guy who's averaging 14 points a game, you know?
Maybe a contract, maybe. Whereas how's Keon Ellis as a defender?
You tell me.
I have no idea. I don't watch Sacramento. I don't get their channel out here.
It's just a confusing.
All right, in my first thing it says he's a great perimeter defender. So I mean, for as quick as a reaction of that is, he's described in here as a 3-and-D specialty. He's a good fighting over screens, and is very scrappy. So kind of, it feels like like a young Dennis Schroeder, if you will, with more length to him. And so I liked Hunter too. I liked him coming off the bench. Like you said, that third option, the perimeter defense, but maybe they're just giving him away at his highest value.
But you can get more. But like, is that to me? Is that the price that you wanna do? Is that the price you want to go with? That's
With
what
the other assets that they've received, that makes the most sense for them.
To me, it's confusing from a Cleveland standpoint because you're fifth in the East and you trade away your other at least two other high scoring guys. Like, you know what I mean? Like DeAndre Hunter is averaging 14 points a game and Garland was averaging 18. Like, and now you have to supplement whatever that math is, 32. And you just brought in James Harden, who only is able to get you 25 points per game. You trade away, here I'm looking at it, Tyson, Allen, and Mobley average more points. Hunter's technically your fourth leading scorer, but he's tied in fourth with Tyson and Allen. Mitchell, you trade away your second leading scorer in Garland. You trade away your fourth leading scorer in Hunter. And the only thing you brought in was Dennis Schroeder, who I'm not quite sure is averaging that many points. I'm not a Dennis Schroeder guy. Like he's averaging 12. He was averaging 12 points a game in Sacramento, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now you send him to Cleveland where he's not going to get as much opportunity, clearly. And now James Harden's in the mix. On paper, you traded away 32 and you're getting 37 back, technically. But in reality, like, where is Schroeder going to get those 12 points a game?
I mean,
because you still listen
about the little trade-off. Like, if I'm in Cleveland's head based on what you're telling me right now, I'm thinking, well, maybe Harden plays more when Mitchell's on the bench, right? Schroeder's a great facilitator. He was good in LA. He was good in Sacramento and every other place that he's been before, right? He's a great facilitator, a good point guard, right? Gets the ball to the sure hand and is pretty efficient in doing it. And then if you need a bucket, he can give you a bucket, right? Or if you want a bucket, he can give you a bucket. And I think that's kind of the facilitator role you'll see there. And then, maybe the Keon or the Ellis for Hunter trade, again, maybe you're just looking at the peak and maybe you think Ellis is better, right? And Hunter was a sweetener for the deal. That's kind of how I can understand this going down. Right, as far as, and then you throw in obviously the draft assets.
I just don't get it for Cleveland. I'm gonna be straight up. I just don't get it.
I mean, you just said it was 32 for 37, and I just gave you a reason to make a way to make it work.
No, but Garland's 26.
Well, I don't think that they were going to sign Darius Garland. I think they're thinking longer term for Garland. If they're picking up basically a contract equivalent.
This is a short term.
Right. It's the same amount of time they have left, though, right? And then Garland's going to come back next year, and then he's going to demand a contract.
But that's when you trade him. You don't trade him in a year and a half.
His value becomes less because
he's a little bit
now
older.
You're under the pressure of re-signing him. Garland could be a top 5 paid guard in the league when his contract comes up. James Harden is either going to be shipped out or he's going to get the vet minimum by the time his contract's done.
I just don't get it, man. I don't get it. You don't either. You talked yourself into it. But the big other trade to keep an eye on here is obviously Giannis.
That was insulting.
Sorry. We're talking about Giannis here earlier. Giannis, I'm really surprised. I think he wants out. He wants out so bad over there in Milwaukee. I do not know if he gets traded this deadline. I think it's like you're going to have to, I don't know, man. You're going to have to really convince Milwaukee to give him up. Like, you got to send, I don't know. And here's the thing, though. I don't know if a lot of guys have the ability to do that either. You know what I mean? I'm not quite.
Milwaukee's asking for?
Yeah, I don't know if a lot of teams have that. You know what I mean? Like, from what I read, it can be the Wolves, it can be the Celtics, it can be the Heat. I've seen it kind of like all over the place in terms of like what I've saw and what I've been kind of reading here. I just, I'm looking at this ESPN article talking about like what can every NBA franchise offer, and the Warriors just give up the farm basically. I'm looking at this trade and they created a Giannis Steph duo. and it's Giannis and Miles Turner. No. They give up Jimmy Butler, Kuminga, Podemski, and 5 first-round picks and 1 swap. Nuts. Like I think the asking price is so much, like, for these guys. Like, especially for a guy like Giannis. I just don't know if anybody's. It's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be 3 to 4 players and 3 to 4 picks and maybe a couple swaps. Like, it's gonna be a lot of.
Well, can you think of a player valuable enough to really diminish his like trade cost, right? That equalizes to any consent or balances out more of what you need to give up. Because I mean, I know I mentioned Cleveland earlier, but let's just imagine it here for a second, right? You give up Evan Mobley. That's probably your heaviest hitter as far as an immediate swap. Good defender down low. Also has the ability to stretch the floor, right? Still on the younger side. And then Cleveland's got picks to give up. Not to mention they also just acquired quite a big 3-and-D guy in the guy that we just talked about in Keon Ellis, right? Now that's going to offset a little bit more defense. A couple more picks, 2, 3 first-rounders. Doesn't sound like it's too crazy of a deal to just immediately throw out there, right? Maybe they ask for a little bit more. Maybe they ask for a couple service players, which also Cleveland just acquired. Crazy work, right?
Yeah,
I don't know anybody on another team that kind of like Bam Adebayo is too old in Miami to be,
I think
serviceable.
When you look at it, right, if you're gonna go for Giannis, you are basically telling everybody you're going for a championship, right? That's a clear, obvious move, like that you tell your fans, right? Giannis, I'm reading it here. He has a player option through 2027, 28, but you're basically getting a season and a half's worth of Giannis, right? That's what you're paying for. Unfortunately, is the price of what you pay for a year and a half's worth of Giannis is going to be 6 years worth of potential talent you give up. Granted, the NBA is a lot different. You're not, like, if you're one of these later teams, you're more just adding in role players rather than looking for stars. But I just don't. If I'm Milwaukee, I get that things haven't been great over there. I think the relationship with ownership has suffered. But, like, Milwaukee's only 3.5 games out of a play-in spot. They're not exactly, like, in a terrible spot, but...
No, but they're terrible when Giannis doesn't play.
They are terrible. I think
he's the only thing keeping them up.
Also, if you trade for Giannis, you're not getting Giannis back until, like, March, too. He's still injured. So, name me a team that's willing to take on that type of risk if you're trying to make a playoff push. If I'm a GM, like, for instance, I've seen the Knicks. If I'm the Knicks, I enjoy what I got, right? I'm currently second in the East, right? I have the Villanova Knicks, basically. I have Bridges, Brunson, Hart. I got the Big Purr. I got OG, Anunoby. You got a great starting 5, and then you mix in Miles McBride. Dude, I watched Landry Shamet have 23 off the bench in a game against the Lakers the other night. You got Mitchell Robinson, who gives you some good depth. You add in Tyler Kolek, barbecue chicken guy. Jordan Clarkson's in this mix. I don't know, like, you're going to have to give up Bridges. You're going to have to give up probably Hart, Robinson, plus 4 firsts. Is that worth that? Messing up that chemistry for Giannis? I don't think so. I think if you're Miami, I think maybe you consider it a little bit more, right? I'm not exactly sure that the Miami is currently 7th at this moment in time, but I'm not sure they have the pieces either. Like, you got Bam, who you're not going to give up. The only other big guy you can move is Tyler Hero, but they haven't moved and pulled the trigger on any of those types of, like, offers. So they obviously have Wiggins on the team. They have a bunch of other dudes as well. But I don't know if you add Giannis, that makes you that much better. Now you have 2 bigs in Giannis and Bam. I just don't think any team, like, if I'm a GM, I can't in good conscience trade for a guy that I'm probably not going to get until March. And if I'm a bubble team, then I'm just screwing myself. Like if you're Minnesota, I've seen Minnesota linked with this team.
That's the team I was just about to bring up.
Like who do you give up? Like who do you move? You move Randall, Nas Reed,
Reed.
Gobert. I don't want to hate that. I think the Gobert experiment has kind of run its course for Minnesota.
I mean, he's just a one.
You get
one direction.
I think the benefit of getting Giannis there is you basically get Gobert with a lot more athleticism.
For sure. Yeah.
You got Dillingham, DiVincenzo. We obviously know
McDaniels could put a lot of that weight off of, draft stock. Gobert kind of replaces somebody immediately. Nas Reed's presence on the floor gives you a person to replace Giannis with, to keep two on the floor. It's not the craziest thing I've ever heard. I don't know if Dante or like DiVincenzo offers enough for Minnesota, offers enough for the Bucks to be interested in versus, planning for the future, but
again, I don't see what other people are seeing in terms of this Giannis stuff. But again, I'm not the ones making these decisions in the NBA, and I'm quite glad that I'm not.
We don't get paid enough for that.
Last little bit here, a little bit of a Jacob rant time. Minnesota did fire their GM, Kwesi Adosah-Mensah, the other day. And what that signals to me is that he's made a lot of bad decisions. Granted, the biggest bad decision is letting Darnold walk. I get it, too. I understand the process and everything that happened to that moment. But he has missed on a lot of first-round picks. Like, it has been, just really, really bad. Like, his first ever draft pick was a safety out of Georgia, Lewis Sign. He was an incredible guy, but then he suffered a fracture, cut his season short, wasn't ever able to make it back. Andrew Booth, not on the team anymore. You added a guard, not on the team anymore. A linebacker, still on the team-ish. All these guys aren't even on the team anymore. Ty Chandler hasn't done anything. Jalen Naylor has actually been a surprising addition. He added Jordan Addison, and Jordan Addison is probably the best pick of the tenure, minus the fact that he's, a speed demon. Mekhi Blackman hasn't done anything yet either. You're looking at a nose tackle, he hasn't done anything. Jaron Hall, don't know why we did it. Dwayne McBride hasn't done anything. He's in the UFL. And then you look at 2024, you draft J.J. McCarthy. Granted, J.J. McCarthy has only played 8 football games. The problem with that is that where Minnesota was 2 seasons ago with Darnold to where we are now, it's a problem. And if you think about it, if McCarthy doesn't get hurt, we're in the playoffs too. And Carson Wentz doesn't get hurt, we're in the playoffs. Dallas Turner hasn't quite turned out to be the guy that I expected him to be, but Dallas Turner isn't incredibly terrible either. The kicker, Will Reichard, has been phenomenal. Michael Juergens hasn't done anything. You're looking at 3 guys that have actually contributed to Minnesota. And if you miss on most of your first round picks, doesn't spell a lot of hope for a fan base. You know what I mean?
I hear you. But here, just to get the ball rolling here, because they fired him. He made some bad picks. There's a great list of bad picks too. Who do you pick to replace him? Who are you eyeballing first off the list? Who's your first phone call to go get? Right. The immediately thought of mine comes to Atlanta's GM that was just fired. That wasn't Snow, was it? Something Snow, or was that?
Maybe.
Am I thinking of Cleveland's?
Might be thinking of Cleveland's.
Atlanta, Falcons. GM fired.
No, I don't want that guy. That guy sucks. I don't want that guy. That guy's the same guy who drafted Michael Penix without talking to the owner about it. I don't want that guy.
Michael Penix, I thought was a great pick, to be honest.
I get why. Here's the thing, though. I get why you do it, but you just signed Kirk Cousins, who also a 4-year, $88 million deal.
Well, if they executed it better, probably a Raheem Morris issue, but there's definitely a way to wiggle that around. I think we discussed that on draft night. We were like, heck yeah, you get 2 years of Kirk Cousins, let what's his name sit behind him, trade off Kirk Cousins to some team, probably Cleveland, that needs him. You let Michael Penix take over the reins. They just didn't plan it like that.
I don't know. If I'm being quite honest, I think you're thinking of Glenn Cook.
For what? Whoa.
I'm reading an article here of different guys. To be honest with you, I think there's two guys who stand out to me. I want a young GM. I don't want an old guy. I want a young guy.
Off the list.
Off the list. I want a young guy. I kind of want a James Gladstone type of guy, type of cat. I want a guy who's not afraid to push the boundaries a little bit and think a little bit more uniquely, because Minnesota isn't exactly, in a big market either. Great fan base though. But I really like John McKay from the Rams, right? His dad was a former GM of the Bucs and the Falcons, right? He's worked his way up through the system, and obviously, the Rams model has been phenomenal. Really great at evaluating talent. And I'm a big, especially because the big miss has been the draft picks. That's a guy I'm keeping an eye on. There's a guy named Terrence Gray who's a quote-unquote rising star, and has been promoted to assistant GM in the last couple years. That's a guy I really wouldn't hate. There's a guy from the Broncos that I wouldn't mind either. Like, whatever the Broncos got cooking up, bring that guy in. So those are the three that I kind of envision right away. Rob Brzezinski is going to be the acting general manager for now, but until he leaves, we'll see. I also wouldn't mind the Eagles GM, just because he's with Howie, and Howie's a psycho, and I love Howie. So, but Brzezinski's going to run everything until after the draft. So I'm not in love with that process of, hey, we're going to let this guy here go through free agency and the draft and then bring in a new GM. I would love to have the new GM now, but I think it's more so they're going to give Rob Brzezinski a chance and for them to just get their bearings. So again, going back to it, you just can't miss on your draft picks, and unfortunately you have to live and die with the quarterback that you draft, like every good GM does, and unfortunately JJ McCarthy got you fired. So with that being said,
they got one more year without a good quarterback, or before a great quarterback class comes in for you, Jacob, and you can have all the people you want, because J.J. McCarthy is...
With that being said, we got the Olympics coming up this weekend. We're going to get that for like a month. That's going to be exciting. First time hockey has the NHLers back since like 2008, I think. So that's going to be
dominate, Jacob. Who's going to dominate? Off top of the dome, no explanation. Who's going to dominate?
I mean, Team USA, dude. Team USA. We have the better. The one thing that should worry a lot of Team Canada people is that Jordan Binnington is playing terrible hockey right now. And Team USA...
That is from... Hold on. Don't tell me.
St. Louis Blues. You were never going to get there, buddy.
No, I wasn't. I was going to pick a Canadian team.
And we have Jake Ottinger, Connor Hellebuck, and Jeremy Swayman, who are all better than Jordan Binnington right now. I think Team USA is properly equipped-ish. I'm not in love that the number 3 goal scorer in the NHL right now isn't on the team, Mr. Jason Robertson. But I'm taking Team USA. I think it would be us and Canada again in the gold medal match. But
fair enough.
Also, did you see this as well? Lindsey Vonn made a TikTok about it. Lindsey Vonn had a really bad ski accident, and she's having an incredible push back, and she's 41. Ruptured her ACL.
Ugh.
And she had a press conference today, and she goes, yeah, I was back out skiing. I'm pretty confident I'm going to compete in Italy for the Olympics on a ruptured ACL.
What a trooper.
If that doesn't tell you how big of a deal the Olympics are,
love it.
And what it means to these people.
I mean, especially for these winter sports. I mean, not a lot of these winter sports get any time of day outside of these Olympics. The NHL being probably the only one, with respect, of course.
Yep.
Baller, absolute baller. Hopefully, prayers that she makes the recovery necessary to compete, because what a story it would be for her to come back and have just a phenomenal run.
Would be incredible. Until then, he has been the delightful DJ McCatherine. I have been your coach, Jacob Pearl. Like, comment, share, subscribe on all platforms. We have been The Deal with D and J.